Step 7. Declaring a restricted field using a custom directive. Now, directives are a way that we can tag code either at design time or at runtime to behave in a particular way. And in the case of IMBOB, the GraphQL API, what I did is I went into the code at design time and I tagged it so that only the email addresses of the person type can be revealed to users that have the proper view permissions. And what do I mean by that? So let's go back over to GraphQL Playground, and I'm going to open a new tab. And as you can see, in this case now, I'm authenticated as CH3, this authentication token. And I'm going to put in a query. And I'm going to paste in the query. And notice I'm asking to get a person by their ID with their first name and last name. And this is a query that's particular to IMBOB. And if you want to know more about it, you can always go over to the documentation and you can look under queries, and then you can see there's a person query, and that tells you how to make the query and the information that's available for retrieval. All right, so I have a query, and let me run it again. First name, last name, and email. And I'm going to run the query. Notice that it says you are not authorized to view personal information. And that's how it should be, because I've tagged it so that only particular people can view email information. If you have, in this case, in the IMBOB GraphQL API, which I declared to be has personal rights. So how did I do that? Well, let's take a look at this query, this type definition here. And again, I'm assuming that you've gone through IMBOB and you understand something about GraphQL types. And in this case, in design time, I created a directive and I've attached it to the email property of the person type, and it says that this person can only view emails, the viewer being the user of the API, if indeed they fulfill the requirement of having personal scope. And personal scope is built into the user administration features of IMBOB. It's magical behind under the covers. You can look at the source code to see how it's done. But the important thing to understand here is that if you're a user that doesn't have personal scope, you're going to get that error message, as I showed you earlier. Or if you do have personal scope, you're actually going to be allowed to see the email information. Now, remember, this person, this user, ch3dd does not have personal scope authority. Okay, but let's give the GraphQL API, IMBOB, a person that does have personal scope permissions. And we're going to do that by going down, and we're going to go down. This is all built into the documentation. You can see it. But let's see if we can grab a user that has indeed personal scope permission. In this case, under task 4, you can see, under task 5, you can see that indeed there is a user that has a special token, exclamation point SS . So let me go back into the GraphQL playground, and let me change out the authorization token. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to copy in this new token. And this user, I just happen to know, does indeed have permission to view personal scope. So let's run the query again. In this case, I'm going to run it, and you can see now the email information appears. Now, when you go in and look at the documentation for GraphQL, you'll see about how you can use that directives to perform different types of behavior based on tagging. Also, as you'll see in the series that goes with this set of videos, there's an in-depth discussion about how to create design time and runtime directives to use to meet your needs.